So this is Matthew chapter 6, the scripture for the 31st of July. The entire 6th chapter of the book of Matthew is all about appearance on the one hand versus actuality on the other hand. If we're so worried about optics that we miss, the actual substance, then we've screwed up. Have you ever interacted with someone who was way more concerned about how things looked than how things actually in fact were? I think these are the sorts of people that Jesus speaks to here, and these are the sorts of people that Jesus doesn't have a whole lot of patience for, because they're all about style and not substance. In worship, many congregations will pass plates or bags or otherwise have some sort of a collection so that folks who have brought some loose change can offer it to the church and can give financial gifts in that way. Some people have joked that they feel awkward not being able to put something in because, they're regular online givers, or they, have their checks sent to the church via bill pay or whatnot. And in fact, some have suggested, maybe in jest, I don't know, having a little card that they could put in. Maybe like a laminated card you could find in the pew saying, "I give online." And that way you'd be able to do something as folks pass the plate. I wonder whether Jesus would say that's the same as giving alms in public instead of in secret. I think that when we're so worried about how we're perceived by other people, we tend to neglect the very real work we have to do on our souls internally. In similar fashion, when prayer leaders lead the congregation in prayer, there are times when they use language that's just so flowery, and I'm guilty of this too, that there's no way that at the end of the prayer God is still paying attention. I mean, I know that God is patient and loving and all that, but God's not going to sit through a prayer where you don't say anything and wait to get to the end. That's just not a real thing. When we lead prayer, we need to be direct. One way of doing this is modeling our prayers off the skeleton of the Lord's Prayer, bringing our hearts in line with God. The Lord's Prayer, roughly speaking, is modeled after in Acts, ACTS framework, where you first begin with adoration. This is thanking God for who God is inherently. Followed by confession, that's the C, where you confess the ways that you don't always glorify God. That's sort of like your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, that sort of thing. Thanksgiving is where you thank God for what God has given to you. Thank you for the beauty of this day. Thank you for the family you've given me, for the loved ones. And then S stands for supplication, where you ask God for things. Give us this day our daily bread. Make us your people, sort of thing. If you follow this framework, ACTS, and you have one sentence for each of these, it's an easy way to structure prayer on the fly without it going on and on and on, not saying anything. So, like we saw in 1 John, loving God is equivalent to loving others. So in the same way, truly experiencing forgiveness ourselves is going to lead to us extending forgiveness to others. There's no other way we can do it. So in continuing his discussion on optics on the one hand versus, actuality on the other, Jesus insists that true holiness takes place on the inside. It's not external to somebody, it's internal. Fasting should still be something believers practice even though others aren't lauding them for it. If your mission is to gain the admiration of others, you can't also gain God's admiration. It's one or the other, not both. Because we can, in the end, worry about only one thing. We can only focus on one thing. Are we focused solely on God? Well, then we can't be focused on the stuff of this world. That's loosely translated what mammon is. Mammon is often translated as wealth or money or stuff, but the things of this world is really what mammon is all about. If we focus on the things of God first and foremost, the rest of the world is going to fall into place. Now, note that this isn't an excuse to neglect the relationships that God has blessed you with. Remember, loving God is equivalent to loving others. Now, I wonder, what stuff tempts you to pursue it above God? That's all for Matthew chapter 6. On Monday, the 3rd of August, we'll look at Matthew chapter 7. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.